Every photographer, after shooting for a while, reaches a moment of clarity, a new way to see and feel the world through their lens. For me, that moment came with 85mm. This focal length taught me something important. There is no such thing as a lens just for portraits or landscapes. Any lens can become a tool for storytelling, emotion, and connection. Today, I want to share the story of how I expanded my perspective, moving from a narrow view to a wider vision, all while shooting with the 85mm. Let me take you back to a story from the early years of my photography journey. It was a time when everything felt uncertain, and the line between understanding and purely feeling was beautifully blurred. Back then, photography for me wasn't just a craft, it was real-world magic. Every frame, good or bad, held the power to awaken something inside of me. I was just beginning to understand that the kit lens was just the starting point, that focal length is more than just a technical setting, but a doorway to creative possibility. It was around 2018. I'd been shooting with the Sony 7 II and the humble Sony 50mm f1.8 for about a couple of years by then. That combo taught me so much about depth, simplicity, and shaping my frame with light. But more than anything, it awakened a hunger in me, a yearning for more reach, more presence. I wanted my subjects to leap from the frame, to truly connect with the viewer. That's when I discovered the 85mm focal length through the Sony 85mm f1.8, which was the first one to get into my hands. And that experience, it forever changed how I see the world through my camera. At first I thought that the 85mm was just for isolating subjects in front of creamy blurred backgrounds. And yes, that's one of its greatest strengths. But over time, I realized that it could do so much more. Shooting with an 85mm, it invites you to slow down, to be deliberate, to compose with intention. The images you can create stretch far beyond portraits. This focal length has a unique voice, a way of telling stories that feel intimate and profound. The true limits of the 85mm focal length don't lie within the lens. They live in the mindset behind it. Over the years, shooting with this focal length has opened my photographic eye in ways I never expected. And if I had to sum up that journey, I would do it in 5 lessons, each one a step towards a more open, flexible way of seeing. Lessons that taught me how to move from narrow to wide, not just in composition but in creative perspective, no matter what lens I was holding. If you are enjoying this video so far, hit the like button and consider subscribing with the bell. The first lesson I learned with the 85mm was about focus, about isolation. You could call it a lesson in portraiture, but for me it was born on the streets, in quiet, candid moments. This is where the 85mm truly shines, pulling the viewer into the subject's emotions and expressions, giving them a moment to say, I exist. But expressions aren't just found in eyes or smiles. They live in gestures, in posture. Someone standing tall and looking upward speaks of strength. Someone walking or standing with their head down tells a story of doubt, of introspection, maybe even of struggle. With the 85mm I could bring those subtle details forward. It felt like zooming in on a phone screen, highlighting something small that suddenly becomes everything. That's when I began to embrace fragments, tight crops that made it clear who the main character was, who and what truly mattered in the frame. Sometimes less is really more. Sometimes a single fragment can tell the story louder than the whole. Once I understood the power of isolating a subject, I took a simple step back. And with that step, something changed. Suddenly, one more element entered the frame. The subject was still there, still strong and clear, but now they existed somewhere. That's when I discovered the power of depth. One of the 85mm's greatest strengths is its ability to sculpt the scene through foreground framing, adding layers that do more than just decorating the image. They guide the viewer not just in what to see, but also in what to feel. Shooting through windows, fences, leaves, At first glance, this might feel like just compositional tricks, but they create mystery, they create intimacy, they soften the distances between the viewer and the subject, turning the photo into an invitation. A person behind a curtain, a cyclist glimpsed between branches. The frame became a stage, the subject a character, and the foreground elements, the curtain you pull back to witness something quiet and real. With every layer I added, the images felt deeper, more human. And I realized isolation doesn't mean emptiness. It can be full of meaning, of tension, of life. And suddenly the subject doesn't just say, I exist. They say, I am more than what you see. Then I asked the question that always pushes creativity forward, the one that breathes life into new ideas. What if? What if the 85mm isn't just a portrait lens? What if I take a step back and let the subject exist within their environment? What if their surroundings aren't just background but a vessel that carries a subject across screens and into people's hearts? Like in this frame, one of my all-time favorites. A silhouetted woman stands within a pocket of light, framed by columns that arch around her. There is something about these columns, they remind me of home. And even though I took this photo in Cambridge, the city that adopted me, it stirs memories of Lavrio, my hometown back in Greece. Maybe that's why I love it so much. At 85mm, when you take a step back, intimacy becomes layered and cinematic. It gives you a way not to just show people, but to understand them, to place them in context, in a moment, in a world. It transforms a portrait from I exist to this is who I am. Then I kept stepping back, further and further, and something unexpected happened. The farther I moved, the more I began to see. We don't exist in isolation. We exist with others, family, friends, co-workers, strangers passing by. Even when we feel alone on a crowded street, we are still part of something larger. Our paths cross, our stories overlap, sometimes only for a moment. And in those fleeting intersections, something beautiful unfolds. Our movements form invisible lines and arcs, waving through the city and transform into a chaotic choreography. And every now and then I'm lucky enough to capture that moment of harmony when everything falls into place just for a breath. That's what cityscapes, not grand sweeping vistas, but tight slices of urban life, taught me. The 85mm compresses space in a way that transforms the city. Buildings rise like monuments, lines tighten, depth flattens, and suddenly the environment frames the randomness of life with clarity and purpose. It gives structure to the mess. And whether it's one lone figure or an entire crowd moving as one beneath those towering giants, the message becomes clear, quiet but powerful. This is who we are. With even more distance between me and my subject, something expected yet fascinating began to unfold. People started to disappear from the frame. The towering structures that once found their meaning in relation to the people around them now stood alone, proud, silent, almost alive, as if they were the souls of the city. But even in their absence, I couldn't stop thinking about the people, the ones who imagined these places, the ones who built them, the ones who passed through them every day. Their presence lingered, unseen but deeply felt. These are the wider cityscapes the 85mm can still capture beautifully. From a distance, people become whispers, tiny silhouettes within vast architecture. And even as they fade, they ground the image in humanity. That's the magic of this balance between scale and intimacy. It turns the city into a living, breathing character, echoing the quiet voices of those who shaped it. Voices, though invisible, they still seem to say, this is what we can do. There is no experience in photography that doesn't come with a lesson. Every new camera, every different lens, every new technique we try It all teaches us something, not just about photography, but about ourselves. That was my journey with the 85mm. It came into my life when I needed to learn something essential. That our tools are only limited by our imagination. That we shouldn't be confined by what others say or expect. That we need to explore, experiment, fail, and try again. Because that's how you create something that is truly your own. Something that may not look widely different than what's already out there, but carries your imprint, your choices, your mistakes, your voice. And somewhere in the frame, a small quiet piece of you, only you will recognize, will be there. So if I had to sum it all up in one sentence, it will be this: be free to create. Do you think that the gear we use shape our creativity? Or does creativity shape how we use our gear? Let me know in the comments. I would be very interested to hear your thoughts. And if you want to dive deeper into how I mastered the 85mm composition, click and watch this video next. That was all for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you on the streets. Bye bye.